Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
Are there any comments or discussion on the minutes we have present? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, minutes are approved. Any additions to the agenda for regular routine matters and or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting? Okay. All right then. Moving on to public comment. Anyone else there, Shannon, besides us?
No, no public comment.
Okay, thank you. Now, the manager's report.
So
Scott.
thank you. I'm going to pass around some preliminary paperwork. Everybody knows the federal government just passed another large package of spending related to COVID. In this package, there was some direct impacts to local governments. All of the details haven't been finalized yet. There's still some Senate-related activity that could potentially modify. But I think the reason that I wanted to pass this out tonight is, again, this is VLCT information. It's preliminary, but it shows there'll be direct payments at town level for basically federal stimulus money. So right now, if you look under Rockingham Town, you'll see that there is a dollar allocation under that.
0.49 of what?
It's in millions, so
Okay.
about a $490,000 allocation, I think, is what they're looking at roughly. The question is going to be how that's allocated, because in Vermont, not everybody's in a town or a city, obviously. And so there might be some additional conversation as to how that money gets distributed further, whether we're going to do per capita breakdowns or other types of breakdowns, or if the state's going to do additional. But this is the current conversation as it relates to future revenue. The reason I wanted to share that tonight with this board is, obviously we're in the middle of our budget discussion, and the question is, how would any of that impact our upcoming 2022 budget, and then any additional monies that might be coming. The way that my understanding is of this new legislation is the first tranche of the money would come within 60 days of passage of the legislation. There'd be a period of time where they expect that money to be spent, some accounting for what the money was spent for. Then there'll be a second tranche of money sometime following that, probably more towards 23, 24. Again, all those details are still being worked out, and there's also additional monies that'll be coming through for water and wastewater projects, which could potentially have an impact on us as we talk about, our water system and our wastewater system. There might be some opportunities to look at some federal assistance there as well. So it all sort of comes in as we get into our budget discussions. It's obvious that we don't have all the details. There's going to be some opportunities, I think, for us to offset some capital investment and maybe some other types of direct investment with some of this federal money. So while we realize that sooner or later everything that's borrowed has to be paid, at least there's an opportunity to see some new revenue and some new opportunity coming to the village. So as these items are more fully developed, and as we talk at our joint meeting on the 30th, one of the items that we're going to discuss in greater detail is a specific request to do a member item, which is the new language for earmarks. It's a whole process, and we'll talk about that at the joint meeting. But we had discussed possibly putting forward the Vermont share of the bridge rehabilitation that might then drive that project a little bit forward. And I'm sure maybe Deb might want to have some comments on that as well. So I'll leave my comments there for now. And certainly if there's any other questions or comments on that, I'd be happy to entertain.
I see that there's a Rockingham allocation, but nothing. When there are 3 municipalities in Rockingham, Bellows Falls and Saxons River. how is that going, how would the monies affect, you don't know yet probably how
They
that'll
haven't really
affect our other
decided how they're
municipalities.
going to do those types of breakdowns. They might do a capital or a per capita allocation. There's been some discussion of that. I was on a conference call this week. There's possibility of doing that through CDBG. So they would do the allocations through CDBG, which would come to CDBG eligible communities and then have a breakdown per capita. That final formula hasn't been determined. So this is, again, very preliminary. I
Okay.
think this is a March 10th printout. So the it's still developing. But I just wanted to give you a sense of where the conversation is. And there is that potential that there might be some additional, direct federal money coming through that process.
Okay.
This is apparently there's a page 1, right?
There's 7 pages of this.
Yeah, this is only part of
This
the,
is only part of it, okay. All right.
I didn't figure you guys were interested in all 7.
No,
7 pages.
there was
of
nothing
everything.
under Bellows Falls,
No,
no.
okay.
no, I looked, so.
Did you have something? Wait.
Yeah, so however, on here, there's Rutland City and Rutland Town
Mm.
was broken out, and Newport City, which is a city within the town of Newport, is broken
Mhm.
out,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
but not Rockingham and Bellows Falls.
Or Sackens River, even.
Again, I think when they got to the villages, they did not include anything at that level of organization.
But are some of these villages on here, Wade? Is that what you're saying?
I don't see any.
Everything was a town or a city.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I
maybe
think
one.
those things are still to be determined. So like I said, it's a fluid conversation.
And your assumption is it's based on population.
One of the conversations we had, and there was members that were representing Bernie Sanders' office, representing Leahy's office as well, and that was one of the items that they're discussing in the Senate version. So we'll see how
Yeah.
far that goes.
Yeah, if that were to be the case, Bellows Falls would receive the lion's share. As we're, 3,100 people out of 52,
It would-
53?
It would certainly change the numbers.
It would,
Yes.
okay. But we can't count our chickens before they hatch, right, so.
Well, there's no guarantee until it's in the bank, direct deposit in the bank account. but
Exactly,
It seems to be trending in that direction, that there's going to be some federal monies coming.
okay.
My only other thought on this was maybe that's because we just submitted everything as a Rockingham as a whole, correct? Would that be the reason why?
I don't specifically know why it was only recognizing to the town level. I'm not sure.
Hmm. Guess we'll know when they get
Yeah.
more into it.
Yeah, there was no explanation in the conversation. That they never got into that level of detail. So there'll be more opportunities, and I'll make sure that we get into that and find out where that's headed.
Did either of you have some comment?
Well, it'd be interesting to see the link, I'd like to look at all the pages. But the other thing I'd look at, like Wade's talking about, we just had some changes up there, I believe, Berry City, Berry Town, see how that breaks
Oh, yeah,
out.
murders and such. Yeah.
Whether it be also Berlin or Morrisville, Williston or something like that. Just trying to understand how they might have
Sure.
allotted
Yeah.
what they hid for the numbers for divvying it up.
Jeff, anything? Okay. Did you have anything else? Scott?
No, that's it for today.
There was a question, what a couple of us had wondered, there, some information about where the bridge other actions are going. There's the one outside of the village, which is on Old Missing Link. There is the Depot Street Bridge,
Yes.
where any of that is going at this time, because just for a heads up, because it will impact our citizens, and they'll be asking.
We're going to talk in more detail about Depot Street Bridge at our joint meeting, but
Okay.
at the moment, the way that the design is going, there's some problems with the design as they had progressed the way it was designed with an arch. In order to build it, they would have to lower the level of the canal. They have not been able to negotiate with the plant in order to get the water levels lowered enough to be able to do the work. So now they're looking at alternate designs, which might, again, we have not seen any of the alternate designs. I emailed the engineers again today just to see where that stands and if there's going to be what the next iteration of that is. I'm hoping to have something more up to date by the time we meet on the 30th.
Okay.
Scott, just on that topic, we went around and around with the state on the design of the bridge.
Mm.
And what was sacrosanct was the shape of that bridge.
Yes.
Okay, this was the last one in Vermont that you know, was this design, blah, 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 okay? Couldn't change it because we wanted to have a better turn ratio
Yeah.
for trucks coming
It's a
off
tough
the
design where
bridge,
it's located
okay?
and how it's going
They
to be.
said, oh, no, they can't do that.
Yeah.
They did it, they did a few degrees this way or whatever.
Yeah.
But if they're gonna have to change the design, then it would seem to me that this blah, blah, blah stuff ought to go out the door. And we ought to get a bridge that, at least when it comes onto Canal Street, has a turning radius that a
Yeah.
truck can, without going up on the sidewalk,
That performs better,
across
right?
the street.
I
So-
agree. I think it opens the door to a lot of conversations,
Okay,
as well as it's going to have to go back through a historic preservation
Right.
review, a section 106, which is
Yep.
going to raise all those questions in terms of compatibility, because I know the design issues were based on a lot on that historic review.
yeah, it was very,
So
very much so.
There is lots to be still determined on that. And
Well, that might not be going anywhere this year.
if the issues are as complicated as the history shows, and I read a bunch of the previous information from previous meetings, a lot of the engineers and all the other analysis, I think it's going to take some time
Yeah.
to sort all that out. And the bottom line is too, there's cost implications, right? I mean, they were looking at
Right,
different local shares. Well,
Oh,
if
yes.
this
Mhm.
now is a third design, I think that it would be a little unfair to imagine that the town is going to pick up that difference.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to have to be some conversations about that too.
You have something?
No.
Okay, thank you, Scott. So we'll
Yes.
talk more about the bridges and stuff like that next week. at joint board meeting. I just wanted to start preparing people because there's lots of, anxiety about all the things that might happen, especially in the village during this summer, have an impact, and along with the new arch bridge, which, yes, Cass said he did see the signs on Route 12, warning people about their preparation for this project start on the new arch bridge.
Right,
So,
there'll be one lane of travel, there will be some temporary traffic lights, and we'll have some more detail as that comes along. That should hopefully be, I don't know if we'll have all the detail for the March meeting, but right after that, we'll have it, because I think they're talking about the initial work starting around the 21st.
There's a sign up by the Dairy Joy coming
Yeah.
this
They
way.
actually
there?
put up
I
a
didn't notice today.
variable message board this
Yeah.
week, so
Okay.
they started warning people.
Okay.
And my understanding is, I think that, especially for the truck traffic, there's going to be some real concern about how they're going to be able to get across the river.
Yeah, really, depending on which side is open to traffic as they turn north, so.
Right.
Exactly. Okay, there's another one. Also with that too?
Yeah,
All right, good.
good.
All right, then. We move on to the agenda, which puts us into set the water and wastewater rates, but we didn't receive any paperwork on that.
No, really, the idea this evening is just to talk a little bit about, we're going to be bringing to you, remember, we're going to break this into sections. So
Mhm.
tonight, we're going to work on the detail of the general fund, and we have some information for that for handing out and discussion. Water and wastewater we're going to do as a separate meeting. The reason we wanted to have this on tonight is just to give you a little bit of just forewarning about what we're still working on, because one of the issues that came up in our accounting review, if you all remember, and I think that the board has been very interested in, is the resolution of this large balance in the due to and due from accounts. I did speak again with the auditors today, and they do have a deliverable so that that will be available and resolved for the next meeting.
Okay.
And the reason that impacts our prior years, because we're going back to 2018 on some of these in order to resolve, so it's going to impact some of the prior years in those accounts specifically. So we want to make sure that that work was done, that it's explained, that everybody's on the same page, and then we'll talk about what we want to do in terms of meeting a rate that'll meet our operating expenses. And just in conversations with various board members and stuff, we are going to be providing you some updates on, and again, once we get to due to and due from, cost recovery, so that you'll be able to see what our real operating revenues are over our expenses, which is basically our depreciation and amortization. And you can then see if we're in a position greater than 1, then we're obviously cash positive and we're making our way. If we're in a ratio below 1, then obviously we have some problems. So I'll have to redo that for 18, for 19, and then also for the results of 20, so we can see how we've done. And then that'll go into that consideration as we go forward on the new rates that we're going to propose potentially for the fall. So there will be no potential increase for March. Everything will stay the same. Those billings will go out.
Consider for the fall.
But if we do anything, we'll make a recommendation for September, and that'll be something that we'll have to go through that detail with and all be on the same page. So
Bills go out early April, right? Is that correct?
she's just about done with the readings. She'll start
Yeah.
printing bills. They should be out in the mail by the end of March.
End of March.
Beginning of April, so,
That's what I wondered, if that would be impacted, so.
yep.
Does that make sense to everyone? There won't be any additional increase for the April billing.
Right. As I understand it, that was kind of the plan, wasn't it? That there would be no increases in March?
There were,
In spring, but.
yes,
Correct. We wouldn't have spring increases. It would just be fall going forward.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That makes
Right.
sense. That's,
All right.
so
Yeah.
we're on track for that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
I wanna-
and, oh, sorry, Scott.
go ahead, Shannon.
Oh, no, so we just wanted to start this conversation with enough time for you guys to, get all the information you need and ask us for whatever you would need. Internally, our recommendation is to stick with what the bond bank recommended on the water side and what RMI had suggested on the wastewater side, which is 3% in the fall for both. But understanding that you guys need to get the audit as well as see what the final billings were. We are projected to well exceed revenue for this year. Two parts. One is that my revenue projections are always on the cautious side. And then two, we saw a significant increase in water sewer due to the pandemic. So lots and lots of people were home that normally wouldn't be.
Okay, good.
So we'll have all of that detail. If there's anything else that individual members want us to prepare prior to that meeting, please let me know so I can make sure that we have time to get that for you so we can have it and get it out to you for discussion. I know I've had some individual conversations, but if there's other items, I'd be happy to make sure that we accommodated you.
When would we have this
When are we-
conversation? In April?
This will be the next regular
April
scheduled
13th.
meeting for this board.
Okay.
And so we need to make a motion to pass the increases and or not have any increases, whatever the board chooses, before August. So lots and
Okay.
lots of time so that we can just preliminary conversation so that it's not sprung on you or you don't have the information you need.
So you're saying July, Shannon, at the latest, end of July?
That would be accurate.
Okay. Okay, great. Anything further?
Well, just, I mean, the big thing is to solve this due to and
Uh-huh.
due from.
Yep.
So,
Yes,
That's
I think that's going to be a big piece
Yeah.
of this, and then I think everything else will flow from there, and it'll be pretty obvious whether we're meeting our forecasted operating revenues or we're not. So it's going to be pretty obvious at that point.
Now, what about the dryer, the wastewater dryer? We're going to be talking general fund budget Thursday night, I guess.
That'll be the first budget that we're going to work through.
And then we're going to wait until the 13th to talk about the water sewer
Right.
budgets.
Wait, we have a schedule for a meeting Thursday night?
No, we're talking about some of the general fund. We're going to
I
start
thought we
tonight.
had the 25th of March was the budget.
25th of March is the rescheduled, I'm assuming you didn't overlap, so
No.
the AV forum got
Right.
rescheduled from last week because of the,
We're
Zoom
going to do
snafu.
general fund this evening.
We're going to
Yeah.
start it. We're not going to finish anything tonight. It's just introducing.
okay.
So
So
there's
it's,
nothing
so we
set
did
in
have a
stone.
schedule, I thought it was on there, that's
Right.
why.
So we're not going to meet Thursday night.
No, although you're more than welcome to watch the AV
AV forum.
presentation. It's 7
Yeah, it
o'clock.
might be nice if more than just myself and Scott turn up in the boardroom.
And what is the meeting?
Automated
It's Thursday
vehicles.
night at 7 o'clock,
Right.
right down here. And most people will be zooming in, of course.
And then
guys
the
from
next meeting will be the 30th, which is our joint meeting with
Select Board.
trustees
Yep,
and select board.
yep. Okay, moving on. All right, next item on the agenda is the Mitel phone system update. Again, there's no paperwork here, so I'm assuming we have an explanation.
Well, we're still working through a couple of bugs on this, and Shannon has been running around trying to chase down problems. Basically, we have ported over all of our primary numbers. And so they're up and working. The voicemails have been set. The issue seems to be that we're having some issues with Dominion Tech in terms of our network security, because this is a voice over IP system. So it's generating some problems. So we have to have Dominion Tech come here to finish some work on allowing or not blocking some of these calls. We're having some problems in a couple of locations directly related to the network security. Once that's done, then we'll have successfully ported over all the numbers. We'll have returned the old phones. We'll have the new phones 100%. Our Mitel contract ends March 31st, so we're done with Mitel at the end of this month. And roughly, I think, Shannon, you can break down the numbers in terms of what we're paying Mitel and what we're going to be paying
Sure. And
Crescendo.
I can elaborate a little more too. So all of our phone systems have been ported and they're up and running. Where we're coming into a problem, so town hall is not a problem whatsoever. That was flawless. You guys are, calling, you get the extensions. Where we're having a little bit of trouble is at sewer, water, highway, Blake Street, rec. And so they can make phone calls and they can also receive them. It just goes right to voicemail. Where we're having trouble is that our firewall is not permitting incoming calls. So we have, we're going to meet with Dominion Tech tomorrow, and Crescendo seems to think it's as simple as them putting in a admin password, which will allow us to receive calls and bypass the firewall, because right now it's saying, these are bad calls essentially, and sending them to voicemail. Regardless, all the department heads, the primary phones for those departments are through their cell phones, which are still up and running and active. These are just the local phones at the plants. So for instance, typically if you guys want to get in touch with Andy, you call a cell phone. This would be the 103 garage phone and the Blake Street garage phone. And so those phones have outgoing capability, and people can still leave messages and they can receive them. So from a functionality standpoint, we're okay. We just need to get the firewall admin password, and then we'll be all set there. From a money perspective, between the Mitel bills and the First Light bills and consolidated communication bills, we were paying roughly, it was like $1,600 a month for all of these lines, and we are now paying $400. And that includes all of town hall and, like I said, all of those locations with all of the department heads.
Okay.
So we're,
Yep.
right now, on the financial you sent out, we had a budget of 3,000. We're at $5,095 as of March 19th. What is your estimate of that number at June 30th?
So we will be over, but instead of, and this is town and village together.
Right.
So, but if you look at a $1,600 a month bill and the division between town and village, which is not the split we have with everything else, that is the split 50% town, 20 village, 15 water, 15 wastewater. The phones are actually done per department. So we will know better when we get our first bill from Crescendo, which will be April 1st. We will still be over on that line item, but like I said,
Right.
we have taken that into consideration, and we will make sure other line items are under to compensate.
I think that what Jigs wants to know is that because we're still on Mitel and we're going to be having an overlap until the end of the fiscal year, will that number be at 6,000, 7,000, 8,000? Where do you think we're going to be?
Well, this is our last Mitel bill. March
Okay.
31, we're done. There's
Right,
no more
so-
service.
Is the last Mitel bill for March in this
It is
number
not.
or not? Okay, it's not.
Right.
So it's going to
So-
be at least $6,000.
And
next
then
month.
whatever your portion of the $400 a month is
Yep.
for village, which so it's a significant savings. And what I can do, Jigs, if you'd like, is on Monday, I can see if we can get a preliminary bill from Mitel, and then I could give you a better estimate of exactly where it will land.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is now is obviously to try to stop the bleeding, but to be sure that in our budget for next year that we're covered. So that's the
Absolutely. And what I'll do is we'll bring that contract to you so that with the allocation for the village, so that you guys can make sure that that aligns with your village budget.
Okay.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on the Mitel? Anyone at this point? Okay, good. That moves us on to the general fund financials. And we're just looking at general fund as because we're going into the budget conversation on general fund this evening. Questions on the general fund for Shannon or Scott?
So Deb, I'm so sorry. I misunderstood the first question. So I'll pull that first thing in the morning.
Oh, yeah, I
And
just wanted to know what was in it.
I was
That's
like,
all.
wait, that's on budget. I don't know. But I get what you're asking. You just want to know
I didn't-
what goes into it.
I didn't have an issue with it being over budget. Just so everybody knows what I asked. The revenue for the police services on page 1, I asked what that comprises, because we do have other fees that we receive revenue from, like parking fines and so on and so forth. So I wondered what was in, just my general question is what comprises the revenue we receive on police services. So that was my question to her. That's what she's gonna get me.
I can speak to it at a high level without actually
Yeah.
knowing. So the police
Typically, yeah.
do VIN number checks, they do notarizations.
Yeah.
In that, I'll get you specifics, but in that bucket is all those one-off services that the police provide.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
that's generally what they are doing. Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Correct. And we don't have a constable right now, so we're not getting any of those fees, but these are just the little one-off police
Do we
services
serve,
that-
do the PD serve papers? Because we don't have a constable and
No, so
It's the
we
sheriff, the
have the
less-
sheriff do it.
usually the sheriff. Okay. All right, so that would not be in there. All right, yeah, so that was it, just a general understanding of what it is they're doing. That's in there.
Accident reports, any miscellaneous things that the police do that we bill for.
Mhm.
So sometimes people want other reports or whatever, and they pay by page. So all those little tiny miscellaneous things come in.
Okay. Thanks.
Fingerprinting.
Yep. I remember there was a time when we were told we didn't do fingerprinting here in the village, but I guess we do now. They don't have to go to Wyndham County Sheriff's to get, or Newfane to get their, to get
They'll do it
fingerprint.
here. Yeah.
yep. Okay. All right, so questions on the general fund budget. I know Jigs usually has a list. Does anyone else like to start first this time?
Actually, I don't even have a list.
Oh my
because
God.
It's an interim, and
Right.
I'd rather
Yeah.
wait for the.
Wait for the beginning of next
Yeah.
month or something.
I
Okay.
like. I'm
Oh,
programmed
it's like
for
it's like a
the.
holiday reprieve here.
There's
Yeah.
therefore,
That's right.
Easter.
I'm asking if the other 3 trustees have questions.
I don't have anything.
I had a question on page 6 of 7 about employee retirement.
Employee return, okay, yeah.
Not the VEMRs, correct, Jeff? Just the employee retirement.
I'm sorry?
Not the VEMRs, but the employee retirement line.
Yeah, 5.94%. I was just wondering if that's,
Oh, yeah.
No, you'll get hit for the whole thing. So that's our old pension. Sorry. That's our old pension plan. And what happens is we take the actuaries from last year and we don't have to pay in. However, they make an estimation and we pay in based on who's still left in that old pension plan. And so, whatever they recommend we pay is what I have been paying, which has worked out. So that check will be written before the end of the fiscal year.
okay.
So did we actually pay the $1,575? Was that a carryover from last year because of overestimation?
So there's 2 different numbers that go into that account: quarterly payments that are allocated between all the departments for administration fees, and then our contribution to the pension, which is completely based on where the market is at the December 31st.
And then under police equipment, same page, gasoline, is that just due to fewer vehicles, less activity?
That is part of it. The other significant part of it is that gas prices this year compared to last year
Yeah.
were
Lower.
significantly less. And so I had budgeted based on per gallon at last year's gas rate. So what you'll see in the upcoming recommended budget is that Scott and I did discuss increasing that because gas prices right now are significantly higher.
Yeah.
And then
Almost.
lastly, on the same page, the workers' comp, is that just a payment that comes later in the cycle?
No. So we're 100% done paying all of those
Wow.
insurance brackets. So the police in 12 months have not had one workers' comp claim.
Huh.
And so I based
Yeah,
premium on the prior year's rate. That's what I just do for budgeting purposes. So generally, it's always been a wash for the total insurance costs, but vehicle costs might go up, workers' comp might go down, things like that, depending on what we have. If we have claims for vehicles or workers' comp claims, things like that. My goal, not line by line, because that's really difficult, but my goal is to have our insurance as a whole at least, stay under 100%. One of the things you'll see is in fire, the vehicle insurance is significantly up, and that was due to buying a new fire truck and rescue engine, and having newer trucks, our insurance was significantly higher.
So has our comp rate then come down due to this year's cycle, or is it premature for that to happen?
No, so they do adjustments every 6 months, and that is a reflection in this workers' comp 12-month policy. The
Great.
police have actually gone 18 months without a workers' comp claim.
Wow.
Fantastic. Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Then we're set.
Good safety record. Okay. Stefan, did you have anything?
Nope, we're good.
Wade?
Good.
All right. And I actually asked my questions ahead to Shannon, so I wouldn't have a list of odd little ones that had bothered me for a while, so I wanted to get
If
this
you'd
in.
like to go just review them real quick, or if you had any more questions, I'm happy to do that.
Well, I certainly had no questions after you answered me. The only one was what the police revenue constituted. That was it for me.
Okay.
Nothing significant. And if it had been anything shocking, of course, Jiggs would have asked that question.
Yeah.
Okay, well then that looks like we can move on to number 4, the last item on our agenda, which is the budget, general fund budget. Our first conversation for the 21-20 to FY22.
So I'm going to hand out a few items and then we'll start the conversation. You have previously adopted fund balance policies, and one of the things that we benchmark is to make sure that our result of operations, we're trying to meet those guidelines. Roughly, I think our policy requires at least 10%. It recommends up to 15% of your general fund budget that be reserved in a fund balance. As you can see, if you go back, and we went back a 5-year period, we had some significant drop in the fund balance, and in the past 3 fiscal years, you've seen a significant change in that financial position, with us forecasting in this year, again, a positive contribution to fund balance, and then 21, we're projecting no use of fund balance in the current budget projection, as well as if we're able to maintain operating expenses, we should also see potentially some additions to that fund balance going forward as well. Those are well within your guidelines. In fact, they're actually above where we would be if if you look at the explanation down below, roughly at our current general fund budget, about 1.6 million, that 15% number is about 240,000. So we're in a healthy position with fund balance, which can lead to all sorts of conversations in relationship to deploying that fund balance if you wanted to potentially acquire equipment, pay off debt, do some other things. Those are conversations we can have. The other page behind that is to just look at going through various years, where the grand list is, where the tax rates have been, how much money has been raised by taxes. You can see in 1 year, in 2016, we did actually use fund balance to help with that fiscal year, maintaining our operations. But as you've gone forward, you've seen that we're suggesting this year would basically be a slight increase in, because the grand list has risen slightly. And if you look at the amount to be raised by taxes, with the potential article for additional capital allocation to the police fire building, that would set roughly $1,675,500 to be raised by taxes. And you can see that there's a tax rate there of 0.6292 in order to raise that money. Behind that, we just have the filings for the grand list. If anybody's particularly interested in how we get to the numbers, it's just the backup to how we then can use those as our calculations to get to the amount raised by taxes. So, Shannon, is there anything else you wanted to hit before we talk about the projected budget for 21?
No, I think you covered it.
The general fund balance.
Yes.
I seem to recall a conversation with Shannon where there's sort of a key number that we try to stay within as far as your balances gets lofty enough, then you're not quite as favored in distributions from the state for other grants or things like that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so that would be the $240,000.
Okay, so that's the number. Okay.
At some point, if it gets to so much reserve, there are times when they'll say, well, you should use fund balance as opposed to getting additional funds to help offset. One of the things that we're still concerned about is until we get the completion of the prior year's audit and we see where we stand with all of our funds, it makes sense at this point to be conservative with that balance. But if we find that once we're through the audit and we get all of the financial positions of our water and wastewater funds determined and our rates, and make sure that we're in a good position there, then obviously I think we have to have a conversation about that number as we go forward, because it does potentially present a problem.
So, and if I could just add to that, Scott, so I'm being very conservative with this $500,000 amount. Our fund balance at the end of water and sewer are different beasts with their project debt schedules and assets and depreciation. The village does not have any depreciation. They don't have a debt schedule. They don't have any debt. So that 500,000 would be a bare minimum at the end of this fiscal year for fund balance.
For June 30th, 21.
That you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, I'd have to say right off the bat, I appreciate you not beating around the bush here. This with the numbers, that's a $211,000 increase from this current year's budget. That's
Well, it includes that
$20,000, right? Only $20,000. So if you take it off as $180,000 or $190,000 increase, I'm just concerned because of all the work done, significant work done last year for this year's budget. We're jumping up a couple $100,000. It's disconcerting.
Can I point out just a couple of things? If we want to go first at a high level, so one of the issues, as we all know, is retention and or recruitment in the police department. So we have built in a couple of things there. As Scott was saying, we have significant fund balance. So to purchase a police vehicle this year in this fiscal year would be amazing. And that would reduce your budget next year by 55,000. I did put it in the budget for next year, just in the event we did not buy one. But regardless, we have to get a police cruiser up and running. For instance, the last accident we had and we didn't have a police cruiser, we only have two police cruisers going if we have one out of commission for any reason at all. So we either need to buy one in this fiscal year and use fund balance, which would be the choice of the board, or we need to put it in the budget for next year, which I have in there. We also have additional training allotment in next year's budget to the tune of $20,000 in the event we need to pay for somebody to go to police training school. There is a variety of things that the board can do. You can also use some of fund balance to help supplement this budget for next year. And so those are all things we can talk about as we move forward, but there are definitely options where this is the wish list and everything that we would want to come out of the budget year, but we don't have to do it this way.
On the grand list for 2021 is the number that's shown here, 2 million.
That is final. And the handout that the handout that Scott gave you this evening, behind it is the 411 for the listers, the final.
So that the 2663, that's the number that's going to be used in calculating 2022 taxes?
Well, yes, we say 2022, but they're actually the 2021 taxes, because tax years are they don't follow our fiscal year. So
okay, so the 2000 for this purpose, 2021 is the next year.
Correct. Yep, absolutely.
And that's the number we're going to have.
It's done. It's sealed. It's done.
That number's been locked, so that's the number we're working with. Won't be changed.
Is that the number you use to figure out what our current taxes for 2022 would be anticipated as?
Correct.
So when we looked at that handout that showed the tax rates from 2008 through to 2021, that's the number we used.
That's the 211,000, right?
That's a small increase. It's an increase, but it's only a couple 100,000, it looks like.
It's still a lot of money.
It's actually, so when you're looking at the 411 like that, I think it says it right on it, but when we're talking about
7 cents, maybe?
9 cents.
9 cents? That's a lot.
Well, it says the increase is 0.0794. 7 cents?
So the grand list increase, though, although it doesn't seem that much, it's because you need to add the zeros at the end of the grand list. Scott can probably explain that better.
Right, well, I think the one thing that also shows in the budget is this budget reflects fully staffed police department, which would be the 6 full-time officers. As we know, we've been struggling to fill all those vacancies, and we have some issues related to compensation that the board will have to address with that bargaining unit. There's going to be some activity on that coming up here shortly. So those potentially are also reflected in these numbers.
Right, but our budget for this current year already reflects staffing for 6. We budgeted for 6 officers and a chief. So that's not any different. I just haven't, we're just looking at changing the numbers.
Right.
So same number of staff we didn't change that from this fiscal year, just the amount of money we paid them.
I did make some
But I think-
assumptions.
well, obviously,
Sorry, I'll talk.
are we going to, I was expecting yesterday or today to hear about the contract. Are we going to?
We got an email from our attorney this afternoon about 3 o'clock.
Okay.
So we did not have time to go and sit and go through it. So I'll have to schedule a separate meeting. with-
So we won't be having an
We're
executive
not going
session
to do
for it
that
this
tonight.
evening.
I'll schedule a separate meeting with the bargaining team, and then we'll bring it forward to the next board meeting
Okay.
after we've had a chance to go through it.
All
So
right.
So you said, Shannon, there's something in here for a vehicle acquisition for the police department too, or no?
They've got she's got a
Yeah.
police
It's
cruiser
in there,
in here.
yeah.
And how much is that?
55,000.
55,000?
We only paid 30-something the last time we bought a vehicle.
Well,
I
it's
thought.
30 some odd thousand for the base vehicle, and it's another 15 to 16,000 to outfit the vehicle.
And the last time we bought a vehicle was 3 years ago, so prices have gone up.
Right, well, we get a used vehicle. That would cost
We're
much.
putting more stuff in them too, but what I would like to get is an estimate, looking ahead for the next couple of years as to, we know we're going to replace a vehicle this summer once we go into the next year. I don't want to do it this year. But, like we could be ready July 1st to
So-
purchase a thing, but I think
Jake,
the
can I
question,
speak
wait a
on
minute, let me
that?
get my
So
question
go ahead,
out.
and then, yeah, we can respond. Just give
Yeah.
it.
My question is, in looking over the next couple of years, what's the replacement schedule that the chief is talking about? Is it every other year? Is it every year? So I'd like to, I think we need that, particularly in terms of what we put into our budget for the purchase of a new vehicle.
Mhm.
Yeah, we can break that out for you. We can give you, our current fleet obviously has some distressed equipment, and we're still, again, since we're running at a lower level of staff, we have not had that crunch, except for when we've had accidents and had to take a vehicle out of service. So
Well,
we'll give you what we have for our replacement schedule.
Yeah.
Jesus, almost
We have that
$100,000
one that
higher.
has a heater or defroster problem.
Yeah, so
That's the next one out of the fleet
Yeah.
that needs to go.
if we wait to order it till July 1st and go through the next budget year, we will need to put about $7,000 into the current cruiser that we have because it cannot run the way it does. They have been very, very good about, waiting and not, but there are things that will not make it to July 1st, and
Right.
especially not if we order a vehicle.
Well, I'm going to tell you,
Wow.
before I spend the 7,000,
Hmm.
there's one for sale right now down in Massachusetts, if I remember correctly. It's half the mileage of what ours are, still has a warranty on it, and we could probably secure it for less than 10.
So that's exactly what Stefan, that's exactly what my
Yeah.
recommendation would be, is since our fund balance is so full right now,
Right.
and they have really, I have to give it to the police, they have been riding around in a cruiser that is so deficient, would be to buy a new or a used cruiser to replace this, because if we dump $6 or $7 grand into this, it really isn't gonna do anything. It's just gonna get us through till
Yeah.
August 1st.
Right, but you're talking about buying a lightly used.
Yeah, this one happened to be a 2017. I think it's got 70,000 miles.
Yeah,
I don't believe there's any issues. It's still under warranty, as it was told to me.
if we did that, you would.
I mean, if we could do that as opposed to spending the 55, there's a savings there.
But that's something that we're going to face in this year's budget.
This
apparently.
year's budget.
That
Well,
would be
I mean, I'd
a
rather not see us-
recommendation. It would be a fund balance purchase,
Yeah.
or you just
yeah,
buy
so
it
you
and
guys,
run a deficit, one or the other.
yeah, so you guys as a board could elect to spend the fund balance. So there's that option. And then our recommendation would be, if you buy slightly used in this fiscal year, would be to still purchase a new one, because we got off schedule. So what we were doing is buying a new car every year, and every 5th year not purchasing one. That's not the schedule that the chief currently is advocating for, but we do need to maintain our fleet, because right now we're not.
Well, I mean, we've thrown good money after bad before. We've thrown, $4,000, I think, one time into a transmission and other items. But I mean, whether or not, I understand that maybe somebody's, or a recommended capital replacement plan, but I mean, when you're looking at 55,000 plus each time for something brand new every other year, that's a hell of a hit.
So
And I
I
don't
guess
believe-
you'll be bringing something to the next meeting or something? Or
We'll give you a schedule with.
I'd like to see us
looking
look
a
at
used
some
potential
options.
And then also looking at
Mhm.
buying new, so
You know,
we can work that in.
you know,
So
Okay.
can we,
Yeah. So why don't
so,
we, yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
So basically, if I'm my first shot at this, but so roughly it's $211,000
Yep.
initially up.
That's what this
so you're
shows.
saying
here.
9
That's-
So
cents.
can we get, for the, when we start in on this, can we get a list of actually just determines what comprises that
Well, it's in,
211?
it's
Oh,
in
we
here.
know. Did you
At a-
look at it? Did you
Yeah,
see-
so
see
at a
the budget?
high level,
We can just give you some of the breakdowns with
I mean,
bigger
we-
numbers, Wade, if that
It's-
helps.
yeah, at a high
Please,
level,
please,
year
please.
over year, staff, union contracts,
Yeah, I
so
got
that's
that.
always gonna increase. We need to make concessions for retention and recruitment in police.
The concession amount will actually be determined by the board,
Yeah.
but you're
Absolutely.
putting a suggested dollar amount on here. I understand that. That's what.
I
you-
just had to throw something in there to get you guys something. And then
It's on,
the police cruiser,
it's on page
the-
5, right? Yeah. Am I
Um,
missing that?
I don't like that thought. I tell you that.
It's a new line. It wasn't there before.
And what's it called?
It's retention. Now I've lost the page. Where'd it go?
It's not 5.
It's on page 6.
6, I think.
that's probably a better conversation for executive session and or union negotiations.
There is a line item that addresses that.
It's a new line, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you got to guide us in terms of what needs to be in executive session.
Yeah, but in open session, we have to make a determination whether the dollar stays there, goes up or goes down or disappears.
Oh, right, yeah,
All that has to be done in
right.
open
But
public
to
session.
get it, we got to get.
Right, we're still not settled on any of that
But
yet. so-
sounds like
That's-
that comes
That's
after the
coming
bargaining.
in the memorandum of understanding from the union.
The biggest numbers are, and, the staffing and the PD and the potential impacts of the contract.
Yeah,
And
always
if we're
are.
If we're fully funded, that has an impact.
Mhm.
We also have an impact on our health insurance. If you look at the year to year, there's an increase in health insurance.
Right,
When do we actually get the rates, Shannon, for next year? I think we did
That's on an annual basis too.
We don't
Yep.
get them till October.
Right, so these are
And
estimated increases.
unfortunately, in the meantime, we have to still build a budget.
It's
Right.
one of those things you
Yeah.
have to look at, prior years and
Yeah.
just do your best at,
So-
where the healthcare inflation rates are gonna be, so we built in an increase to that.
So it's,
An additional 55,000 for a cruiser, and that's a majority of your 200,000 in those 3 items right there.
Right.
Right.
So the insurance incentive went to 0, is that lumped into?
no, so, in previous budgets, what we've been doing is identifying insurance incentive and health insurance. But
Okay.
what we've found going forward is that there is no way to align those two. So I'll throw myself up for an example. So I came in as a finance director. I said, I'm a family of 4. My husband has insurance. I'm going to take the incentive. Well, 6 months into my job, I got divorced and I took the family plan for me and my kids, which went from 13 to 23,000. So budgeting line item for line item is just not an accurate way to do it. And so, and also such a small municipality, it violates HIPAA. So what I did is I threw it all into one line item. So insurance incentive and health insurance are in one line item because we flip-flop. Families flip-flop, positions flip-flop. We don't know who's going to take what.
Yep.
So it's just all clumped into one line item right now.
So
Mhm.
the increase that we're looking at, the 130 that is proposed is really an increase from like 106, being the 79,000 plus the.
It's all together, right?
now
That's
it's all
correct.
together.
And that increase is because last budget year, we budgeted per person, per plan that they were on. So this would be a fully staffed police and assuming just a general rate across the board.
Sure, I'm with you. Thank
But
you.
we'll go through that
Yep,
when we get there.
yeah, that's a significant increase, but yeah.
No, it's not a significant.
No, I mean, just because the number, just looking at the
Well,
number.
well, each
That's all.
employee on a family plan is $23,000 a year. So it's actually not a significant increase whatsoever, even if you combine the insurance incentive and the health insurance. If you look at each employee, if they carry a family plan through the municipality pays 23,000 a year. So it's actually not that significant.
Right, but if you look at the numbers for this year, it's 78 to 750
But-
and 28.
But that's
Adding
because
adding the incentive, right? Add the incentive together, you got 100,000, and now you've got 130,000 budgeted for next year.
that's because I already have police that have changed plans due to family situations. It's not an increase at all. And in fact, if all of the police that are on incentive move to our family plan instead of taking the incentive,
Mhm.
you would be $10,000 per police officer up.
Yeah,
I'm trying to make a budget where if there are moves, like, so this is a line item that we would never, ever just spend to spend. This is a line item where we need to be a little conservative, that if we have a police officer go and we have a new one come in and one's on incentive and one's on family plan, that we have that flexibility.
Mhm.
Yeah, our pool is too small, so, 3 or 4 moves within a budget year has a significant impact on our
Right, I understand, but
total.
Right, but I think the point of what our job is to review whatever Shannon's strategy is
Sure.
and decide what number we want to put in there, okay? If the actual, okay, for health insurance from Department X this year is 50,000, just to use a number, and Shannon proposes 100,000, okay? Then we're going to reserve the right to understand how she got the 100
Yep.
compared to the 50
Right.
and decide what number we want to put in there, okay?
Ray, I'm trying to
you're
explain
not-
it
That's
to
okay.
you without
Go ahead.
violating HIPAA.
I understand, Shannon,
No,
but
we
just
get
let.
it.
I'm not
just
talking
finish.
about violating
Right.
HIPAA,
Right.
okay?
it's
But
to
if
us,
the-
it's just a number, Shannon. We look at it as a number,
As a
and we look
number.
at that number and think whether we think it's too high or it makes reasonable sense if you explain it in a way we can understand
sure.
and accept, or not.
Yeah, so I get it.
So I would anticipate if I were the board and I was projecting into this budget, I would anticipate you have 6 full-time officers plus a chief, and I would assume all of them take the highest plan. That's how I would budget for
That's
benefits.
how you would budget, and I wouldn't
I wouldn't
budget
do it that way.
Well, then when we're over our line item,
That's okay. We've got a $500,000
I don't wanna spend.
surplus, and we're in an environment where we want to budget smart. We want to budget a number that actually we achieve. We're not trying to lose money. We want to achieve the budget, but we know that unlike back in 2017 or whatever it was, if something bad happens, that we can withstand it for a
We have
year
a fallback
type of
if
thing.
we
So
needed to, yeah.
I think, but again, that's our job, and your job is to propose it the way you and Scott want to propose it, and it's up to us to accept it. So that's okay. It's the way it's supposed to work.
Some large municipalities budget over buffer every one of their budget lines. And then they make sure they spend it by the end of the fiscal year as well.
But that's what I'm saying. This is not a line item I can spend.
Oh, I know that.
Like I get buffering. I'm not buffering whatsoever. I'm telling you, with the information we have, with the people that we have on staff, this is not even buffering. This is actually super conservative. And depending on who we hire, we could well exceed this.
And my only concern is with health insurance, right? We've all had the experience. You've never seen a premium reduction, at least I haven't.
No,
in
it
my
always
working
goes up every
lifetime.
year.
So my assumption always going forward is health insurance at best remains flat and at worst goes up double digits. So I don't think we're in a double-digit world, but we're certainly not in a. flat
Probably at
world.
9%, which is about what it's been the last few
So,
years here.
Right. So I
Actually,
think,
I think it's been a little bit better than.
Has it been a little bit
Yeah.
better than that?
so I think when you look at it overall, I think you got to factor in some of those numbers, but we can certainly have.
Yeah,
that
we understand that.
conversation. Yep.
So we're gonna revisit this.
We'll be
we're talking-
revisiting
Well,
all
we're
these
gonna go
numbers.
through
They're not-
everything.
Proposed, this
These
is
are not
in no
static.
way, right,
No.
this is just the first, this is just the
First pass.
breakdown of where things stand,
And
and there's a lot of
Unfortunately,
additional money that.
with
we
the
have to talk about.
contract up in the air, we have to negotiate it, but we're looking at a budget while we're not finalized. If we had final numbers, it would make sense to move forward when we've all come to an agreement. Yet, we're looking at fluctuating numbers, and of course, this department is always the biggest department that we have to deal with. It's the majority, it's the lion's share of our budget. There's no way around it.
Right. Hopefully we'll have better knowledge in the next couple of weeks.
I think we'll actually probably, we'll have to get together toward the end of this week or beginning of next.
Okay,
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like that's where we're at.
good. Good.
Yep.
I should look at this end of the table and see if these two trustees have
But I think
anything,
that, you
questions
know,
on
what-
these items too. So,
One of the things that we realize
Sorry
is, you know, with everything that's gone on this year, you know, Black Lives Matter, the defunding of police and all that kind of stuff. What the sum and substance of it is that there's a huge shortage of police officers. And it's not just Bellows Falls, it's everywhere. And it's kind of the profession that nobody wants. And I think, unfortunately, we have to look at it from the standpoint of, do we need a police department? And if we do, we got to pay for it. So I think that's the unfortunate realities that we're faced, that Deb and I have been facing along with Scott.
For months.
In discussions with the union. So it's really, it's even more than just the union negotiations. I think it's been a process where Scott and the chief has had to look at, you know, at what rate can you attract somebody to this career type of thing. And so we're talking about some much bigger changes than we ever anticipated when we started out on this thing.
Yeah, I think most of the time we talk about things like that, they're incremental changes when you get into these negotiations. And they're never easy, but eventually you sort of get to a point where you understand where you're going to be.
And I think the
This one's been a little more difficult than that.
not to jump the gun on our meeting in a couple of days or whatever, is that the quid pro quo, as far as I'm concerned, for this kind of a contract, is flexibility. We have got to emerge with a contract that basically gives the chief the flexibility to operate the police department. And I think that certainly one of the key criteria that we've got to face in this budget is the number of full-time police officers. We've got it in, I believe, Shannon, you've got it in at 6, right?
6 and the chief.
Yes.
Yep.
6, the chief and 6.
Yep.
Full-time,
And we're
correct.
currently,
Yes,
the chief and 4.
Chief and 4
We're
right now.
currently the chief and 4.
Yes.
we're
If
currently
you-
the chief, 2, and a sergeant.
Is it 2? No, it's 3, isn't it?
Well, we're
That's
talking
something
about
else.
vacancies. I think,
Yeah.
We only have 2 police officers.
so, 2 patrolmen, one sergeant, 1 chief.
Okay, so we're down to
and
3.
part-timers.
We're down
We're
to
three
3.
positions.
Once we lose our most recent officer, we'll be down 3.
Yeah.
2
Okay.
vacancies and 1 transfer.
Today was his last day, so we're
Okay,
there.
well, that's new. That's a revelation.
Yep,
We didn't know that.
that's,
Thank you.
I'm sorry to
So
hear
it's
that.
3.
Chief and 3.
Chief and 3 at the moment, instead of
Yep.
a chief and
Right.
6.
And some part-time.
Right.
Um,
And I think in the budget,
Yeah.
we've got the chief and 6.
Correct.
yes. Well, Wyndham County Sheriff's has a major banner on the top of their Facebook page for and just like the first thing you see is bam, want a job, basically, is what they're saying, and they give you the rates and everything. They're desperate to find people, just like all of us are.
Wyndham
Maybe we should
County,
consider
up and
that.
Down the state, we're having the same problem,
Yeah, it's everywhere.
you know.
I think officers know there's jobs everywhere. I mean, they can choose where they want to go.
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
that's right.
That's part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's definitely that.
and
And
so
I
the
think
banners,
attracting new folks into the pool, you know, getting them through an academy and getting them interested and getting them on a force is a real challenge.
right.
We're just not getting, you know, we're not getting that pool that wants to go and become a sworn officer.
Now, if we can circle back around to the budget, do you have any questions on the preliminary general fund budget?
I think you've covered it.
I don't.
Looks
I
like
think
we've
we're good for
had our first round for
first
the,
cut, but I think
yep,
we're good.
first
Well, I
cut.
think that a couple of questions on the revenue
Okay.
side
Sure,
here.
that's good.
I don't want to create a problem with the select board, but under other income here,
Oh, yeah, that.
we have the health officer reimbursement.
Oh,
Has
That's Sean, yeah.
that been looked at in terms of, how much time
That,
Sean is spending?
yeah, that has been evaluated by Chuck, Sean, the manager, and myself.
And so that number is good at, I guess it is going to go up a couple $100 or $160.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is based upon an increase in his salary.
Salary.
And my thinking is
Because
the,
$6,400
Yeah.
on his
of
cost
his cost, but
is
the-
like,
his
what is
amount
it?
of time might change too, and that would
2%?
increase that
I
number
don't know.
because of all the changes to the rental inspection program, and when we actually have to start doing that, which I'm assuming would be in the next fiscal year.
So, as we were
That's part of
discussing,
it.
billing hourly for the development director, perhaps to remove the stipend and just bill hourly for Sean as well as a health officer.
One of the things that we're still evaluating, again, because the state's looking at all these various changes as well. There's currently a bill that's being debated
Right.
about costs of health inspections and rental inspections, and the state looking at how that might be allocated through the state, maybe even down to the municipal level.
Yeah,
So whenever the state wants to step in and help, you get a little nervous, thinking, okay,
yeah. They want to hire 5 inspectors. That's the plan for the
it's-
entire state.
it
and-
seems a little loose to me,
Yeah,
but,
still doesn't give us any funding.
it doesn't help us on our bottom line. But we're keeping an eye on that conversation to see exactly where that goes.
The other one is school patrol.
Oh, it's been up
What
too.
what about the truant officer? Does the truant officer get paid anything from the school department?
Do we even have, who is the truant officer right now? I don't even know.
Thaddeus, I believe.
Is it Thaddeus?
Last I knew, I thought so.
I thought it said in the
According to
paper,
the newspaper, he is.
According to the newspaper, he is. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
but I didn't know if.
I
if
don't,
the-
bel- I,
If the school,
not that I'm aware
made
of,
a
but then
payment.
again, that would be Rockingham School District, I'm
yeah, I'm
assuming.
assuming it doesn't apply to the high school. I don't know.
No, so that's what I'm figuring. It's got to be the middle, most likely the elementary and middle school.
Right.
And I don't see any
Any-
income.
any-
I'm
no,
not,
I don't
I
know.
can
I
find
mean,
out, but I'm not on that board, so,
Yeah, so
I'm not aware of any payment for that.
yeah.
I think it's more of a task and a breakout for our own
right,
edification than it is for any kind of reimbursement.
okay. The,
There was a time there was an officer from the Bellows Falls Police Department assigned to the high school. That no longer happens.
Yeah, there have always been school resource officers and that whole,
Yep.
program and
Mm-hmm.
various stages.
Oh, and so, yeah, so I guess I did have a question, Shannon. On the Governor's Highway Safety Council,
Oh, yeah.
is that program still going on?
So what happened is, they still pledged their funds and said, all the municipalities, we guarantee you will pay you or whatever, but we have a very tight budget. So what we said to our staff is, until they have and will release the funds, we will not allow you to go work governor safety. So we still absolutely, depending on COVID, when they release the funds, we could send our guys out to, because it's all time and a half. We could send them out to make up this money, but it also is savings in our budget. So
Yeah.
all of the money paid to Governor's Highway is expensed at time and a half, and then we are reimbursed per
Right.
hour, fully benefited at time and a half. But because our budget's so tight and because of how things are going, we just said no to our guys.
Okay.
They do say they're going to get the funds. They promise the funds. But that would be, something the board would have to approve from a financial perspective. I'm not comfortable releasing them to go do that without guarantee of funds. If you guys would like them to start, we could totally bill up the 10,000 and get it back once it's released. I'm just not comfortable with that.
I'm only asking really because I have seen some of their monthly or biweekly reports, and they actually put governor, council.
No, so there was only one officer who went for an hour and a half, and he was not paid. And we put in writing that he will be paid when the funds are reimbursed to us. They didn't
Okay.
know it was on hold, but there's only been one officer for 1.5
Okay.
hours. Other than that, we have not done governor safety.
Okay.
But the assumption is that if it is there, we'll budget for it.
Yes, if
Yeah.
we get some assurance that the state is now going to fully fund and reimburse, then we will definitely put the program in the field and make sure that we go out and do the enforcement.
My only concern is a speculation of anticipated revenue when there may not be any, like this year.
It's right. It would be a zero, and it would be no expenses against it, so it's just a wash at that point. There would be no impact.
Okay. All right. Anything further on the budget? All right. Then that takes us to the end of our agenda. Review agenda items for our next meeting, which is April 13th.
Well, we're going to have a thorough discussion of the police budget. Right?
Well, right, but we're going to do that before the April 13th meeting, I'm assuming.
Okay.
We'll
Right.
have a separate meeting with the bargaining committee.
Yep.
We'll do a
And then we'll
separate
get that to the
offsite, and then we'll
board.
have a meeting with the full board once
Mhm.
we're comfortable with where that is. I'll schedule that with you and Deb
Okay.
separately.
Okay. So on here, April 13th, what do we have? So we'll have another, but what's budget piece is going to be on April 13th? We going to water or wastewater at that point? I can't remember what's on the schedule.
Both.
We should meet with Scott and the chief and
Oh.
Shannon on the
Right,
general fund.
right, but I'm
at some
talking,
point.
yeah, I know, but I'm just talking, as we move down our own
We'll
agenda.
just leave it as an open item, so it won't disappear. We'll just continue it. This was just an introduction.
Right, I'm just asking for our next general meeting, we're moving into what we need to put on that
The
agenda.
next one, we'll work on the water fund. That'll
Yeah,
be the
okay.
next one. And then the follow-up will be the wastewater.
Okay,
That gives them enough time to finish off, hopefully, all the rest of the audit issues that we discussed.
What's our deadline for the budget? Is it,
For your decision, you mean, to take
Right.
action?
yeah,
well, yeah, for us to move on the budget and accept it,
Be about 12th of April or somewhere around there, wouldn't it?
yeah, that's right.
I thought there was
No.
another, no, I think there was other sessions after that. I don't.
All right, well, maybe,
but I thought the next one was Thursday night, but that's okay. But
I think it was that 25th, I think. We were
Okay.
gonna-
Of what, April?
I believe. On our preliminary schedule, I believe that's what it was.
Wait, yeah, but our meeting is
No,
in
the-
May.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, April, and you get a month.
We had a
in
meeting-
May.
You got to figure a month.
Right.
So probably 15th of April is kind of our drop dead time
No,
frame.
that's not a lot of time.
So we really need to have a session on the general fund.
Yeah, because we
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 set
haven't
4
decided
dates.
to extend
Yeah,
the
but
date of our
what-
annual
what are
meeting
they?
this
I
year.
mean,
We decided not to.
I haven't
Not,
written down.
we
the
haven't
Not
done
to.
it.
Is it
Well,
in
we
the-
could still
No.
do that if we
Could
wanted
still,
Is
to.
it in the
yeah.
I'll
minutes?
resubmit the budget calendar. I didn't bring it down with me, so I don't honestly remember what we
Yeah.
had originally proposed.
Because we have to get it to
As far as
print,
them dates
we
you're
don't
talking
have,
about, Jeff?
we haven't even discussed whether we would have an informational meeting prior
Okay.
in order to give people a chance
Previous,
to
all right.
change the budget numbers on the floor.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
I mean,
when
any
get
of
back
those
to the
things, now
house.
that we're gonna have an annual Australian ballot budget item. The residents will not be able to move any of the numbers.
Right, it'll be much like we did
last,
month.
what you did in March,
Right.
for the beginning of the month for the select board.
Why don't you check with
Scott on the
and
schedule.
come up with a date
Yep.
Yeah.
For us.
Because we don't have as much time. It seemed like we had some reason, it seemed like a long time, but now we really are.
Well, I think.
It's
Because
not.
if we're
we gotta
waiting
find
to,
them at the 12th of April.
water
2
and sewer
months.
don't go on the ballot, but
Right,
but we should have the budgets done.
We might-
yeah.
And to wait
might
until the
confirm with
13th,
Kathleen.
if our
I mean,
deadline
because
is
we haven't changed
the
anything.
15th,
No.
Shannon
we're
would know
still
what
on
the
the May-
deadline
what is
is,
it,
but
I had
Second
to-
usually
Tuesday,
it's
I
3 or
have to look
4
at the-
weeks
Yeah,
before
I
the
had to look
meeting.
at that, too.
Because it has to be published in the book and
Right.
stuff.
We have
It's the
certain
second
amount of
Tuesday.
requirements.
Lead
I'll
time,
double check it.
yeah.
So yeah, there's
So
not a lot
I
of time.
think we need to have a meeting
The
next
last
week
meeting
anyway.
In
we
between.
came, we talked
The
about,
ballots have to be back 20 days before the meeting.
20 days before the meeting. And our
20
our
20.
annual meeting date is May. Is
Is
it
it
the first
15th?
Tuesday or the second
It's
Tuesday?
the 3rd, I
It's
think.
I think it's close to the 19th. Usually it's
It's
right
gonna
near my
be
birthday.
after the 12th
Yeah.
of May, but I think you're looking at the 12th of April.
The other thing, just to throw in
May
the
17th.
May 17th.
Is the
May
actual
17th, the other thing is that you guys can opt to move your meeting this year to later, but that's,
But although with the restrictions loosening, I'm not sure if we need to. Kathleen just said something in the chat. I
I gotta
couldn't
send it to the printer by 4/21.
420. Send to the printer by 4/21.
That's the ballots, though, I believe?
Yep. So we have only until April 21st to
Yeah.
settle on a budget.
So we need a meeting next week.
I started to say at the last meeting, we came up with 4 dates. 2 of them were regular
Right.
meeting nights.
Two
and then
regular meetings
And
and
we
two
added 2
in
additional
betweens.
dates.
Yeah, and
I
can't
have them
remember
written
those things.
down, but I don't have them here in front
Yeah,
of me.
I know, that's
I
why-
didn't bring mine down either. I know we added them, I just didn't bring them down.
Yeah, I have a
So-
pile of paper underneath my computer. and
Because
it's
I
right there.
wrote it in my calendar that it was
Yes.
this Thursday, so obviously
I
that
think
was.
it was originally the 25th was one of
Yeah.
them.
They weren't,
No,
Were they in the
one
minutes?
before.
yeah, so not this one. It would have been the end of February, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll send them along. Send. Okay. Yeah, because we'll need that. Okay. So actually, by April 13th, we should be close to finishing.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't make a lot of changes in the water and wastewater because they're enterprise funds.
Right.
okay. Let us know.
Yep, I'll do that. I made a big circle date. So I don't know what else will go on our regular April 13th except for the budget. I mean, really, we're going to get to that. That's what it's going to be. 'Cause since we only have a week after that,
I don't remember any other items that were time
at this
sensitive.
point not, but we
Don't
have,
we put the water and sewer fund into the budget book?
yeah, it's in there,
It's
but
in there.
it's in
We-
there, but nobody
but-
votes on it.
Nobody
yeah, but,
votes on it.
right, it's not the water rates are what you guys,
Right,
But
exactly.
if we're gonna have a budget, and we're gonna pick it up on the 13th, and we've got until the 21st.
Yep,
It's just a short time. Because
yeah. So we would have an opportunity for another meeting after the 13th if we needed to.
Well,
We didn't finalize it.
you're gonna wanna do it before the 21st, because it has to have time to be assembled and
Right, exactly. Yep. So, yeah. Okay. I guess we should have started sooner. So we'll move on to the agenda. You can see all of the listed items for the joint board meeting. Those stayed on, right, Scott?
So far, everything's on.
I don't really think they're gonna, I mean, we're gonna limit conversation on some areas. We don't have to spend a lot of time on all
The only
these.
one that could potentially come off is the assistance to firefighter, just because there's nothing really updating at
Yeah.
this point. So it's, the others are items that we really do have to have a conversation
Mm-hmm,
about.
mm-hmm.
So it's gonna be a pretty long, we're gonna try to move items, but it's gonna be a pretty packed agenda.
It'll be congested, yep,
Yeah.
no doubt. Review and approve orders, bills, and warrants.
So moved.
seconded.
Second, okay. All right, any conversation on those? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, other business. Scott, do you have anything?
No, the only other thing is we did talk about if we're going to do an earmark, we'll have it on for the meeting of the 30th. for a
Right.
specific budget amount, and we'll have a conversation on that evening, because that'll have to go in. The time period for these earmarks is very short,
Mhm.
so it has to be in, I think, by the 5th of April or something along those lines.
Wow, yep.
So we don't have a lot of time.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
We'll have that for the 30th. That might be the only other item that we'll add to this. To this
Right,
list.
add to the, Wade,
Nothing.
Vic. Yeah,
In the past couple days, I've noticed the road crews have done a great job cleaning up the streets and the sidewalks. It's starting to look good thanks to the good weather, so just wanted to
Spring
say
cleanup
it's
came a little early, so keep your fingers crossed that we didn't jump the gun.
coming early and it's being noticed, so thank you
But
for
I do
that.
appreciate that. They've been working hard, so.
Yeah.
I hope School Street's on the agenda.
I hope every street is.
They did South Street this morning at 4:30, because I heard.
Yeah.
Did it?
yeah, that's always lovely.
So it's a little loud, but
Everything in the
appreciate it.
everything in the village pretty much echoes. You can almost hear it from
Oh,
hear
yeah, I
things
could
going
hear
on
the
at
common
any
egg
point.
going. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Stefan.
Nope, Jeff just hit upon it. We're good.
Okay, trying to think, do I have anything? I don't know. I want to congratulate the safety levels that our departments have taken, based upon the numbers we were discussing earlier. They've done a great job to keep our workers' comp low. It's always a great thing. Every day that's safe is one day better. We are opening up, remember, and even though a lot of people have gotten their second shots, they're still recommending you telling you still keep your distancing and do your face mask, and more businesses are opening up now, as the restrictions are loosening, but that doesn't mean we can reduce our diligence. We still need to be careful, because it's not over yet, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's all I have. And nothing further. We don't need an executive session. We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. Then all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Aye. Thank you. Everyone have a good night and enjoy the warm weather.